Why you wouldn't last a day in medieval times. The morning that would break you. Before we begin, I want you to get comfortable. Lower the lights. Let your shoulders drop a little. Take one slow breath in and a slower breath out. Tonight, we are not rushing anywhere. There are no battles here, no shouting kings, no dramatic music, just the slow unfolding of a different world. A world without electricity, without central heating, without soft mattresses or morning coffee. Tonight, we are gently exploring why, if you woke up tomorrow in the Middle Ages, you might not last even a single day, not because of danger, but because of the quiet, constant discomforts. And as we explore, I want you to imagine everything softly, like a candle-lit painting. If you drift off halfway through, that's perfect. That means the story has done its job. Now, let's begin. The cold that wakes you. You wake up, but not because an alarm goes off. You wake because the cold has reached your nose. Your room is dark gray, not black, not bright, just that soft early morning gray before sunrise. You are lying on something that rustles when you move. Straw. Your mattress is a sack filled with straw or dry reeds. It shifts underneath you. There are small lumps. You cannot adjust firmness. There is no memory foam remembering you. Your blanket is wool, thick, slightly scratchy, heavy. You pull it closer, but the air is still cold. There is no thermostat to turn. If you want warmth, someone must feed the fire, and the fire went out during the night. You sit up slowly. You can see your breath. Already, you miss central heating. Already, you might not last the day. The silence of no electricity. Notice something else. There is no hum, no refrigerator buzzing, no distant traffic, no phone charging on a nightstand. Just silence. Maybe wind, maybe a rooster far away, maybe a dog barking once. That's all. Medieval mornings were quiet in a way modern people rarely experience, and quiet can be uncomfortable. You were used to background noise, podcasts, music, scrolling. Here, there is only stillness. You swing your feet onto the cold clay floor. It is colder than you expect. You inhale sharply. Yes, this alone might be enough to send you back home. Washing without comfort. You reach for water, but it isn't in pipes. It sits in a wooden bucket. It was carried from a well yesterday. The surface is still, slightly cloudy. You dip your hands in. It is freezing. There is no warm option. You splash your face. It is bracing, honest, almost shocking. Soap exists, but it is made from ash and animal fat. It smells faintly smoky. There is no fluffy towel, just rough cloth. You would miss your bathroom more than you realize. The bright mirror, the warm shower, the predictable comfort. Here, every small act requires effort. Breakfast that isn't breakfast. Now you are hungry. But breakfast is not cereal. It is not eggs and toast. It might not even be breakfast at all. Many medieval people simply ate when food was available. You sit at a rough wooden table. In front of you, coarse brown bread, dense, slightly sour, made from barley or rye. You tear it with your hands.
There is no butter unless you are lucky. Maybe there is pottage, a thick stew kept simmering in a pot for days, ingredients added slowly over time, carrots, onions, cabbage, maybe a bit of grain. It smells earthy. You take a spoonful. It is filling, but plain. No spices unless you are wealthy. And coffee? Coffee is centuries away from common use in most of Europe. You drink small ale instead, weak beer, safer than water. Imagine that, your morning latte replaced by mild fermented grain. You might not last the day. The walk to work. After eating, there is no commute in a car. You walk. If you are a farmer, you walk to the fields. If you are a blacksmith, you walk to your forge. If you are a weaver, you walk to your loom. The road is not paved. It is mud when it rains, dust when it is dry. You feel every stone through thin leather shoes. There are animals moving slowly along the path. Chickens, a cart pulled by oxen. The pace is unhurried. No one checks a watch. Time is measured by sunlight and church bells. You already feel how different your body moves. Slower, heavier, less rushed, and yet more tired. The labor your body isn't ready for. If you are a farmer, you bend, and bend, and bend again, planting seeds by hand, pulling weeds, swinging a scythe during harvest. Your back begins to ache before noon. There are no ergonomic chairs, no supportive shoes, just repetition, steady motion. The sun rises higher. You sweat beneath wool. There is no air conditioning. Shade comes from trees. Lunch is simple. More bread, maybe cheese if fortunate. Water from a stream. You realize something quietly. Medieval life is physically honest. Your body works because it must. Modern life hides physical strain behind machines. Here, there are no machines, only muscle. You might not last because your muscles are not prepared for this simplicity.
The smell of the world. This part is gentle but important. Medieval towns had smells. Animals lived nearby. Waste disposal was basic. Leather tanneries had strong odors. But medieval people did not constantly think about it. The nose adapts. Herbs were hung in homes, rosemary, lavender, not just for scent, but for protection, as people believed. Smoke from hearth fires lingered in clothing. The world smelled earthy, real, untreated. You, accustomed to sanitized air, might struggle, not dramatically, just quietly uncomfortable. Illness without reassurance. If you develop a headache, there is no pharmacy. Perhaps an herbal remedy, willow bark for pain, honey for wounds. Monks tend gardens filled with medicinal plants. There is knowledge, but there is no guarantee. A small infection can become serious. A toothache can linger for weeks. You would miss certainty. Modern medicine gives quiet reassurance. Medieval life carried quiet uncertainty. And yet, people endured. They believed in balance, the four humors of the body. Health was harmony. It is a poetic way to think about the body, even if imperfect.
Evening comes quickly. The sun lowers. Work stops because light fades. There are no street lights. Darkness is complete. Candles are precious. Fireplaces glow softly. Families gather near warmth. Stories are told. Songs are sung. Hands mend clothes. There are no screens, no scrolling. At first, you would feel restless, but gradually, your breathing slows. The night outside is deep. Stars brighter than you have ever seen. Silence thicker. You might discover something unexpected. Peace. Why you wouldn't last a day. Not because of danger, not because of war, but because of constant mild discomfort. Cold mornings, hard beds, heavy labor, limited food, uncertain medicine, deep silence. Your body is trained for comfort. Your mind is trained for stimulation. Medieval life removes both. And yet, as the fire burns low, as wind moves gently outside, as church bells ring once in the distance, you begin to notice something softer. Life is slower, less cluttered, less noisy. Time stretches like open countryside. And now, as we sit in this quiet medieval cottage, the embers glow softly. The night is deep, and I can feel your breathing becoming slower. Soon, I will grow quieter too. In the next part, we will explore medieval sleep itself, segmented nights, shared beds, and the strange comfort of darkness. But for now, let the image fade. The straw mattress waits. The wool blanket is heavy. The village rests under moonlight. And if your eyes are closing, that is exactly as it should be. The night, the village, and the life you're not ready for. Before we continue, take a slow breath in and let it go gently. If your eyes are already heavy, that's perfect. If you're still awake, just let the words float around you like distant candlelight. In first part, you woke up in the cold. You felt the straw mattress. You tasted the coarse bread. You walked the muddy road. Now, night has settled more deeply. The village is quiet, and we are going to stay here a while. No sudden movements, no sharp turns, just a slow walk deeper into medieval life, into the parts you've never really thought about. And as we go, you may notice your body relaxing more and more. The medieval night is truly dark. Modern darkness is not real darkness. Even when you turn off the lights, there is still glow. Street lamps, phone screens, city skies tinted orange. But medieval darkness was something else entirely. When the sun set, it truly left. Imagine stepping outside your small cottage. The door creaks softly behind you. There are no lamps lining the street, no glowing windows except a few dim candles flickering behind shutters. Above you, the sky is enormous, stars so sharp and bright they almost feel close enough to touch. You hear wind in the grass, maybe a dog shifting somewhere in the village, maybe distant sheep, and that's it. Silence. You might feel uneasy at first. Your brain is used to light and constant input. But if you stand there long enough, you begin to feel small, in a peaceful way. You begin to notice the rhythm of the night. Medieval people knew these rhythms well. They understood darkness not as something to avoid, but something to live inside. Segmented sleep, the first and second sleep. You return inside. The fire is low. You lie down on your straw mattress again, and something interesting happens. You sleep, but only for a few hours. This was common in medieval Europe, what historians call segmented sleep. People often had a first sleep, then woke naturally in the middle of the night, not because of anxiety, not because of insomnia, simply because that was how their bodies worked without artificial light. Imagine waking softly around midnight. The room is cool. The fire is nearly out. The world is silent. Instead of panicking, you simply sit up. Perhaps you add a small piece of wood to the fire. Perhaps you whisper a short prayer. Perhaps you think quietly about tomorrow's work. Some couples would talk during this time. Some would read if they were fortunate enough to own a book. Some would simply sit in stillness. This hour between sleeps was calm, unrushed, unstructured. Then, naturally, you lie down again and drift into what they called the second sleep. You might not last long because your modern mind sees waking at night as a problem, but in medieval times it was simply part of the rhythm. The night was long, and time moved differently inside it.
The weight of winter. Now imagine winter. Snow covers fields. Wind slips through cracks in wooden walls. Firewood must last. Food stores must stretch. Evenings are long. Candles burn carefully. You sit wrapped in wool layers near the hearth. The fire crackles softly. Outside, the world is white and still. Winter in medieval times was not cozy decoration. It was endurance, but also community. Families stayed close. Stories filled long nights. Hands mended clothing. Time slowed even further. You might not last long, because winter now is something you escape with heating. Medieval winter was something you lived through fully. Yet there is beauty in snow falling silently onto thatched roofs, beauty in shared warmth, beauty in patience. The slow acceptance of limits. Perhaps this is the biggest difference. Medieval life had limits. Limited light, limited food variety, limited travel, limited medical certainty. And because of these limits, expectations were smaller. Modern life teaches you to expect convenience, speed, choice, control. Medieval life offered none of those in abundance. And that is why you might not last, not because it was terrifying, but because it was slow, demanding, honest. And now, as we sit by the dying fire once more, the village quiet, the stars high above, I am going to lower my voice even further. Soon I will grow quieter. In Part 3, we will explore medieval childhood, love, travel, and the strange comfort of routine. But for now, let the image soften. The bell has rung once more. The snow falls gently. The straw mattress waits. Your breathing is slower now, and that is exactly right. Childhood, travel, love, and the comfort of routine. Take a slow breath before we continue. Let it move gently in and gently out. If you are already drifting, that is perfectly fine. You do not need to follow every word.
Just let the images form softly behind your closed eyes. The medieval village is still around us. The fire has been stirred. The night is deep. And now we turn to parts of life you may not have considered. Not kings, not battles, but childhood, travel, marriage, and the quiet repetition of daily routine. All the small pieces that make a life.
A medieval childhood. Imagine being born in this village. There is no hospital room, no bright lights, no machines. You are born at home, in a wooden cottage, perhaps with the help of a midwife, an older woman in the village with experience passed through generations. The hearth is warm. Soft murmured voices fill the air. Life begins simply. Childhood in medieval times is different from yours. There are no toys made of plastic, no glowing screens, but there are simple things. A wooden carving, a cloth doll stuffed with scraps, a stick that becomes a sword in imagination. Children learn quickly. By the age of 5 or 6, they begin helping, carrying small bundles of wood, feeding chickens, fetching water in smaller buckets. Not because it is cruel, but because everyone contributes. Childhood is shorter. Responsibility arrives sooner. You might not last long because your idea of childhood is longer, softer, more protected. But medieval children also had laughter. They chased each other through fields. They climbed low trees. They listened to stories told by elders. And at night, they slept close together, often sharing beds for warmth. The house would be quiet, except for breathing and the occasional crackle of firewood. School without classrooms. If you were born into a peasant family, formal schooling might not be part of your life. You would learn through watching, through doing, through repetition. If you were fortunate enough to be in a monastery school or a wealthy household, learning might include reading Latin texts, copying letters carefully onto parchment. Imagine the quiet of a stone room, long wooden tables, young students bending over parchment with quills dipped in ink. Candlelight flickers. The scratching sound of writing fills the air. Education is rare. Books are precious, each page written by hand. You might not last long because your world gives information instantly. In medieval times, knowledge moved slowly, carefully, like water poured from a clay jug. Now, let's walk softly into another part of life, love. In medieval times, marriage was often practical. Families arranged matches based on land, trade, alliances. But affection did exist. Partnership did exist. Imagine two villagers walking together along a dirt path at sunset. They do not hold hands publicly. Modesty is valued. But they walk close. They share small conversations, perhaps about the harvest, perhaps about future children, perhaps about the coming winter. There are no grand wedding venues, no elaborate decorations, a simple ceremony inside a stone church, candles glowing, the scent of herbs in the air. Community gathered close. Marriage binds families together.
Love grows slowly through shared labor and shared survival. You might not last long because your expectations are shaped by modern romance stories. Medieval love was quieter, less spoken, but often steady, built on daily cooperation.
Travel is rare and slow. Imagine deciding to visit another town. Today, you would drive or board a train. In medieval times, travel is an event. You prepare carefully, pack bread, pack dried meat, fill a water skin, wear your sturdiest boots, and then you walk miles and miles, or ride a horse if fortunate. Roads are uneven, forests stretch wide. You pass travelers occasionally, merchants with carts, pilgrims heading toward holy sites. Travel is slow. Danger exists, yes, but we won't dwell on it. Instead, focus on the pace, each step deliberate, each mile felt in your legs. You might not last because your body expects speed, but there is something calming about moving at walking pace. You notice birds, wind, the way clouds shift slowly across the sky. You arrive tired, but satisfied. Distance feels earned. Food by season. Modern life gives strawberries in winter. Medieval life does not. If it is spring, you eat what spring offers. If it is autumn, you eat root vegetables and preserved grains. Meals repeat often. Bread, pottage, cheese, occasional meat for special days. But there is anticipation. When berries return in summer, they feel precious. When apples ripen, they're celebrated. You might not last because your taste buds crave variety, but medieval eating teaches patience. It ties you to seasons, to soil, to weather, and that connection can be grounding. Festivals and holy days. Life was not only work. There were festivals, harvest celebrations, saint days, moments when work paused. Imagined lanterns hanging from wooden beams, simple music played on flutes or drums, villagers dancing in a circle, children laughing, bread shared, ale poured. Clothing still simple, but cleaner for the occasion. The mood light, unhurried. You might not last because you're used to constant entertainment, but medieval joy came in bursts, small, meaningful gatherings, moments that felt earned after long labor. The comfort of routine. Here is something unexpected. Routine in medieval times was steady. Wake with sunrise, work until light fades, eat simple meals, sleep in 2 segments, repeat. There is something deeply regulating about that rhythm. Your modern schedule changes constantly. Deadlines, notifications, unexpected interruptions. Medieval life was repetitive, predictable, and sometimes predictability is comforting. You might not last because the lack of novelty would feel restrictive, but after a while, your mind might settle, your nervous system might calm. You would begin to align with the sun, the seasons, the bells. Aging in the village. As years pass, your body slows. There is no retirement plan, but there is community. Elders sit near the hearth. They tell stories. They mend tools. They watch children play. Wisdom is valued. Gray hair is not hidden. Wrinkles are not erased. Life is visible on the face.
You might not last because aging today is often resisted. In medieval times, it was accepted, quietly, naturally.
The clothes that never truly felt clean. Let's talk softly about clothing. Your wardrobe today is full of options. Cotton, soft fabrics, athletic wear, breathable materials. In medieval times, most clothing was linen and wool. Linen against the skin, wool over it. Linen could be washed. Wool was harder to clean frequently. Bathing happened, but not daily. Contrary to myth, medieval people did value cleanliness. Public bathhouses existed in many towns, especially earlier in the Middle Ages. But water had to be heated manually, carried manually, and clothing took time to dry. You would likely wear the same garments for several days. Not filthy, just lived in. The fabric would hold the scent of smoke from the hearth, the faint earthiness of daily work. It would feel heavier than modern clothes, slightly rough. And yet, when winter winds blew, that thick wool would feel comforting. You might not last long because your skin is used to softness, but medieval clothing was practical. It was built to endure seasons, not trends. Water is heavy. Here is something small that would surprise you. Water is heavy, very heavy. In medieval times, every bucket of water had to be carried, from well to home, from stream to cottage, for drinking, for cooking, for washing, for cleaning tools. Imagine lifting a wooden bucket filled to the brim. Your arms strain slightly. Now imagine doing that every day, often multiple times. Modern plumbing has quietly removed this labor from your life. You might not last long because you've never thought about the weight of water. Medieval life required physical closeness to every resource: food, firewood, water. Nothing came at the turn of a handle. Everything required motion. The sound of the bell. Throughout the day and night, bells marked time. There were no wristwatches, no digital clocks. The bell told you when to wake, when to pray, when midday arrived, when evening came. Imagine the slow echo of a bell rolling across a valley, deep, measured, steady. It is not loud, not urgent, just present. The bell connects everyone in the village to the same rhythm. You don't check the time, you listen for it. And when you hear it, you adjust your day accordingly. There is something soothing about shared time, something grounding. The marketplace without noise. Now imagine market day. You expect chaos, but it is quieter than modern markets. No engines, no loudspeakers, just human voices. Vendors call softly. Chickens cluck. Footsteps move across cobblestone. Wooden carts creak. You smell bread baking. You see woven baskets filled with carrots, onions, turnips. fish laid on wooden tables, cloth draped over stalls. Ancient humans move slowly through narrow lanes, examining goods. Coins exchange hands, small metal discs, slightly worn. There is no plastic, no neon signs, no advertisements. Everything feels tactile: wood, metal, stone. You might find it charming for an hour, but by midday your back aches from standing. Your stomach growls if supplies are low. Comfort is limited. Still, there is beauty in simplicity. The medical garden. Near the monastery, herbs grow: lavender, sage, thyme, rosemary. Monks walk slowly between rows, tending plants carefully. These gardens are quiet places, healing places. Without modern hospitals, nature is pharmacy. Honey is applied to wounds, herbs brewed into teas, knowledge passed through generations. You might not trust it fully. You might crave the reassurance of modern medicine. But there is something peaceful about the care given here, slow, attentive, rooted in observation.
Why you truly wouldn't last. Now that we've walked through childhood, love, travel, work, and night, the reason becomes clearer. You wouldn't last not because medieval life was constant suffering, but because it required endurance of small discomforts: cold floors, limited food, heavy labor, uncertainty, deep silence. Your body is conditioned for comfort, your mind for stimulation. Medieval life offers neither in abundance. And yet, as the fire dims once more, as wind brushes against wooden shutters, as distant bells mark another quiet hour, you may feel something surprising: a softness, a slower rhythm, a life stripped down to essentials, perhaps not easier, but simpler. And now the night is deep again. The straw mattress waits, the wool blanket is heavy. The stars shine above the village. In the next part, we will gently explore medieval cities, guilds, quiet crafts, and the slow passing of generations. But for now, let your breathing deepen. Let your thoughts drift like smoke from a chimney. The bells are faint now. The wind is softer. And if sleep is beginning to take you, that is exactly right. If you are already feeling sleepy, that is perfectly fine. You can simply listen or let the words drift in and out like distant bells in the evening air. We are still in the medieval world. The fire is low. The sky is dimming. The day is not finished yet. And you are still trying to last just one day. The late afternoon in a medieval village does not rush. It lingers. The sun lowers slowly behind the thatched rooftops, casting long golden shadows across the dirt path that runs between cottages. Smoke curls gently from chimneys, carrying the scent of peat and wood. You might imagine the faint crackle of a hearth, and perhaps the distant clucking of hens settling in their yard. By this hour, your hands would ache. If you had spent the morning gathering water, sweeping, grinding grain, or working in the fields, your back would feel stiff in a way that modern chairs and soft mattresses rarely allow. Medieval work was constant, steady, and rarely interrupted by true rest.
Even children worked. A young child of 7 or 8 might already be helping carry small bundles of firewood, scaring birds away from crops, or turning a simple spit over the fire. Play existed, yes, but work always waited nearby. If you had arrived here from the modern world, the weight of that expectation would feel heavy. There is no quiet afternoon scroll, no idle distraction. The rhythm of the day is built around survival. And yet, it is also simple. There is something strangely calming about knowing that your only tasks are to eat, repair, gather, mend, and sleep. As twilight deepens, the villagers begin to gather. In many places across medieval Europe, whether in the countryside of England, the forests of France, or the hills near Florence, evening was often the most communal part of the day. A shared meal might take place in a single-room cottage. The entire household would gather near the hearth, because that was where the warmth lived. The medieval house had no hallways, no separate bedrooms, no private corners. Everything happened in one space: cooking, sleeping, mending, talking. The floor might be covered in rushes, dried reeds spread across packed earth. Over time, these rushes collected crumbs, ash, and dust. They were changed only occasionally.
If you are listening now, you might imagine the soft rustle of straw beneath your feet and the gentle pop of wood in the fire. Dinner would be simple. Pottage, a thick stew made of whatever vegetables were available, might simmer in a pot hung over the flames. Perhaps onions, cabbage, leeks, beans, sometimes barley. Meat was rare for peasants. If it appeared, it was usually salted pork or a small piece of bacon added for flavor. Bread was the foundation of the meal. Not the soft white bread you might know, but dense, dark loaves made from rye or barley. It was heavy, filling, sometimes slightly sour. You would tear it with your hands. There were no forks in common use. Spoons existed, often carved from wood. Knives were shared. You would drink ale, even children did, because water was not always safe. The ale was weak, low in alcohol, and brewed locally. It tasted earthy. If you had modern taste buds, you might struggle. There was no sugar in the daily diet for most people. Sweetness was rare and precious. Honey, if available, was a treat. As night approaches, light fades quickly. Without electricity, darkness feels complete. The only illumination comes from firelight or perhaps a tallow candle made from animal fat. These candles did not smell pleasant. They burned unevenly. Imagine the room now, dim, flickering, shadowed. Faces glow softly in orange light. Outside, the sky deepens into indigo. Somewhere beyond the village, an owl calls. You might hear distant wind moving through trees. In larger towns, perhaps near the great cathedral of Notre Dame Cathedral or along the narrow streets of York, evening bells would ring. Slow, steady. They marked time in a world without clocks in every home. The bells told you when to pray, when to close your shop, when to gather, when to sleep. Time itself felt different, not measured in minutes, but in bells, in seasons, in light and dark.
If you tried to last a day here, you would now face one of the greatest differences between your world and theirs: sleep.
Medieval sleep was not always one long, uninterrupted stretch. Many people practiced what historians now call segmented sleep. They would fall asleep shortly after dusk, what was called the first sleep. After a few hours, they might wake naturally in the deep of night. They would sit quietly by the fire, pray, talk softly, or even visit a neighbor. Then they would return to bed for a second sleep until dawn. The bed itself might surprise you. Most peasants slept on straw mattresses stuffed into rough fabric sacks. These sacks flattened quickly and needed frequent refilling. Bed frames were rare in poorer homes. Often several family members shared one sleeping space. Privacy, as you know it, did not exist. If you were accustomed to quiet bedrooms and soft blankets, this would be difficult. But there is something strangely peaceful about a dark room lit only by embers. Imagine lying down now on a straw pallet. The air smells faintly of smoke and earth. You pull a wool blanket over your shoulders. It is slightly rough but warm. Outside, the wind moves gently. Somewhere nearby, a dog barks once, then settles. Your body is tired, truly tired, in a way that comes from physical work, not mental scrolling. In that exhaustion, sleep comes easily. Yet medieval life was not only peasants and villages. If you had somehow been born into nobility, perhaps within the stone walls of a manor, your day would look different, but not necessarily easier. In the castles of Scotland or along the Rhine in Germany, noble households operated like small communities. Stone walls were thick, but rooms were drafty. Tapestries hung on walls, not just for decoration, but for warmth. They softened the cold echo of stone. Even so, winters were harsh. Fireplaces existed, but heating an entire castle was nearly impossible. Only the great hall remained consistently warm. If you imagine walking through such a hall, you might hear your footsteps echo softly against stone floors. Torches flicker along walls. A long wooden table stretches beneath beams darkened by smoke. Dinner here would include roasted meats, perhaps venison or boar, spiced with herbs. Spices were a sign of wealth. Pepper, cinnamon, cloves, these traveled long distances and were treasured. Yet even in luxury, hygiene remained limited. Bathing was infrequent. Teeth were cleaned with cloth and water. Illness was common at every social level. You might not last a day here simply because your immune system would be unprepared for the microbes of the medieval world. But we will not dwell on illness. Instead, we will wander softly through quieter details. Consider clothing. Medieval clothing was layered and practical. Linen undergarments absorbed sweat. Wool outer garments provided warmth. Dyes were natural. Browns, muted greens, faded blues. Bright colors existed, but were expensive. Buttons were rare. Clothing was tied with laces or fastened with simple brooches. Shoes were made of leather and wore down quickly on rough roads. If you walked even a few miles, your feet would feel it. Roads were mostly dirt. In towns, waste and mud mixed together underfoot. You would need to watch where you stepped. Yet in the countryside, the air could feel wonderfully fresh. Imagine standing now in an open meadow beyond the village. The sky is vast. There are no electric lights anywhere.
As night deepens, stars multiply overhead in breathtaking numbers. The Milky Way stretches across the sky like pale mist. In medieval times, people knew these stars intimately. They navigated by them. They told stories about them. The constellations were maps and myths. Perhaps you lie back in the grass for a moment, just for a breath, and listen to crickets. It is quiet in a way modern life rarely allows. No engines, no hum of distant highways, just wind, insects, distant animal sounds, and your own breathing.
Medieval sleep was not always one long, uninterrupted stretch. Many people practiced what historians now call segmented sleep. They would fall asleep shortly after dusk, what was called the first sleep. After a few hours, they might wake naturally in the deep of night. They would sit quietly by the fire, pray, talk softly, or even visit a neighbor. Then they would return to bed for a second sleep until dawn. The bed itself might surprise you. Most peasants slept on straw mattresses stuffed into rough fabric sacks. These sacks flattened quickly and needed frequent refilling. Bed frames were rare in poorer homes. Often several family members shared one sleeping space. Privacy, as you know it, did not exist. If you were accustomed to quiet bedrooms and soft blankets, this would be difficult. But there is something strangely peaceful about a dark room lit only by embers. Imagine lying down now on a straw pallet. The air smells faintly of smoke and earth. You pull a wool blanket over your shoulders. It is slightly rough but warm. Outside, the wind moves gently. Somewhere nearby, a dog barks once, then settles. Your body is tired, truly tired, in a way that comes from physical work, not mental scrolling. In that exhaustion, sleep comes easily. Yet medieval life was not only peasants and villages. If you had somehow been born into nobility, perhaps within the stone walls of a manor, your day would look different, but not necessarily easier. In the castles of Scotland or along the Rhine in Germany, noble households operated like small communities. Stone walls were thick, but rooms were drafty. Tapestries hung on walls, not just for decoration, but for warmth. They softened the cold echo of stone. Even so, winters were harsh. Fireplaces existed, but heating an entire castle was nearly impossible. Only the great hall remained consistently warm. If you imagine walking through such a hall, you might hear your footsteps echo softly against stone floors. Torches flicker along walls. A long wooden table stretches beneath beams darkened by smoke. Dinner here would include roasted meats, perhaps venison or boar, spiced with herbs. Spices were a sign of wealth. Pepper, cinnamon, cloves, these traveled long distances and were treasured. Yet even in luxury, hygiene remained limited. Bathing was infrequent. Teeth were cleaned with cloth and water. Illness was common at every social level. You might not last a day here simply because your immune system would be unprepared for the microbes of the medieval world. But we will not dwell on illness. Instead, we will wander softly through quieter details. Consider clothing. Medieval clothing was layered and practical. Linen undergarments absorbed sweat. Wool outer garments provided warmth. Dyes were natural. Browns, muted greens, faded blues. Bright colors existed, but were expensive. Buttons were rare. Clothing was tied with laces or fastened with simple brooches.
Shoes were made of leather and wore down quickly on rough roads. If you walked even a few miles, your feet would feel it. Roads were mostly dirt. In towns, waste and mud mixed together underfoot. You would need to watch where you stepped. Yet in the countryside, the air could feel wonderfully fresh. Imagine standing now in an open meadow beyond the village. The sky is vast. There are no electric lights anywhere. As night deepens, stars multiply overhead in breathtaking numbers. The Milky Way stretches across the sky like pale mist. In medieval times, people knew these stars intimately. They navigated by them. They told stories about them. The constellations were maps and myths. Perhaps you lie back in the grass for a moment, just for a breath, and listen to crickets. It is quiet in a way modern life rarely allows. No engines, no hum of distant highways, just wind, insects, distant animal sounds, and your own breathing.
If you truly tried to live here, you might find the silence both comforting and unsettling. There were no instant messages, no headlines. News traveled slowly, sometimes taking weeks or months to arrive from another region. Life was local. Your world rarely extended more than a few miles from your home. For most people, travel was rare and often unnecessary. Yet trade routes connected cities across continents. Caravans moved silk and spices along paths that linked Europe to Asia, sometimes passing through regions once connected to the legacy of Genghis Khan and the vast networks that followed. But that world felt distant to the average villager. Your concerns were immediate. Is there enough grain? Is the roof secure before winter? Has the cow calved safely? Has the harvest been good? Medieval life required resilience. You would not last a day not because it was filled with constant chaos, but because it demanded constant physical effort, patience, and acceptance of uncertainty. Yet there was beauty in its rhythms. The church calendar structured the year with feast days and quiet seasons. Festivals marked planting and harvest. Music came from simple instruments, flutes, drums, stringed lutes, voices singing together in candlelight. Imagine that now. A small group gathered in a hall. A lute begins softly. A simple melody rises. The song tells a familiar story passed down through generations. The fire warms your face. You feel present. There is no hurry, only the slow passing of hours. As we reach the close of this part of the story, the village is fully asleep. The embers glow faintly red. The sky outside is deep and clear. You have made it through one medieval day. It was harder than expected, more physical, more communal, less private, but also slower, simpler. Now, as you lie here in the darkness of your own room, perhaps far more comfortable than any medieval bed, notice how soft your pillow feels, how steady the temperature is, how quiet your walls are. Let your breathing slow. Imagine the distant toll of a bell once more, low and gentle, carried on cool night air.